gorilla stomping in a zoo. Check the vocals, animals gather right. Boom.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to another episode of our chicken coop build. So we're going to get back at it again, get some more of the tedious work done. Now I kind of say that on a regular basis, getting some more tedious work done. But it seems like the tedious work never ends, so maybe it's just either all tedious or carpentry in general is tedious to the amateur at least. This would be, this could be old hat or to a regular carpenter. This is what seems like a big task to me, could be just off the cuff easy to someone else. But I'm going to be continuing with that today. I think the big part is that I've been just building towards finishing the roof, and I still need to frame out the nesting box here as well, which is one of the final finalizing tasks. And there's a lot still to look forward to, so like doing a lid for the nesting box, doing some material sheeting on the roof, waterproofing, painting. So it's still a tall list of things that need to be done. Making the little flip-up doors for the vents, the chicken coop door on the other side, the main door. We still got a tall list of things that need to be tackled. So today I'm going to be doing a little bit more work with the roof. And I alluded to that last time when we were discussing at the end of the video of what was upcoming. And that'll be the bird blocking. Okay, so that is going to be small segments of 2x4 that are put between the rafters to either prevent rodents or birds or squirrels from getting up into the roofing area. When you put a sheet on top and a sheet below, you have this cavity left behind, so you want to block off entry into that. Now my wife actually had a good idea when it came to that as well. My wife was kind of saying, rip a sheet of plywood and just put it up underneath, almost like a fascia or a soffit. And that could probably work well too. And I don't really have many reasons not to do it that way, because that would definitely be easier than cutting out these separate bird blocks. And it would probably be just as effective, if not more. But the only reason I'm not going to do it is kind of simple. It's just that I haven't seen it done that way. Now there's probably people that have done it that way, I just haven't come across their videos to see it. But definitely the method that I have seen is the bird blocking method. And so I'm just going to do that. So whether it's the more tedious route to go, so be it. I'll know at least there's a nice secure 2x4 blocking entryway into that eave, instead of maybe a plywood that could be pecked through by woodpeckers or scratched through by squirrels. Probably maybe that's the reason they don't use a sheet of plywood, but plywood's pretty strong, so it's probably not the reason. Either way, I'm going to start with the bird blocking, and then once that's complete I'll move on to building out some eaves. And I'm going to be making 6-inch eaves. So that's going to be two 2x4s, so 1.5 inches for the width of both of those, so that's 3 inches. Plus a 3-inch spacer in the middle, so then the whole unit together will be 6 inches in width. And we'll create that and nail it on the ends, and we'll have our 6-inch overhang to match our 6-inch overhang on the sides. Alright, so I think that's the general gist of the goals for today. Bird blocking and eaves are the big things I want to achieve. So depending on how well that goes and how quickly we get it done, I may move on to doing a bit of framing with the nesting box, but I'm not going to get ahead of myself too much. Alright, so let's get started with the bird blocking. I'll get the camera set up. I'll show you a little bit closer on how I'm picturing this going. Alright, let's get to it. Alright, so when it comes to the bird blocking, I'm going to be using 2x4 like I mentioned. So if I just wanted to do a straight up and down bird block using that 2x4, we see that I have a little bit that goes beyond the height of the rafter. So I'm going to have to use the table saw and cut that bit down, but I'm going to have to cut it on an angle to match our roof line. Okay? So the way I'm figuring is that all these rafters are made from the template and they're all uniform in size. So I double check that by measuring from the plywood up, and I'm looking at about 2.5 inches in height off of the plywood to the top of the roof line. So I can check that on both sides, 2.5. Same thing over here, 2.5, and so on down the road, okay? So I know that I need to cover 2.5 inches high in the bird block space before I begin my angle to match up with the roof line. Okay, so 2.5 inch front with a roof line bevel at the top to follow that. So I got to figure out the roof angle, see if I can remember that. I was actually wrong in the last video. I kept saying 26.5 degrees. It wasn't. It was, I think it was more in the lines of 27.5. And some of them, I think, were even closer to 29 degrees. So, all be told, I'm going to be matching that up properly. I'll set my table saw to that angle, and with that 2.5 inch front, and I'll take that bevel off of the 2x4, and then we'll cut that up into appropriate chunks and get those screwed into place. That's my plan of attack. Let's see how well it goes. Alright, so the method that I've kind of messed around and figured out for getting the angle of this roof line again. So we got our roof line angle here meeting with our 90-degree plywood on the wall. So what I've done is taken my speed square, butted that up against the plywood and brought it down so the pivot point rests on the roof line. And you'll notice now over here that our degrees, now the camera's looking down at it a little bit, that's why you can see this portion of the rafter. So what looks like 26 degrees to you guys is actually 27. When I look straight across the ridge line there, it's 27 degrees. So I'm going to be setting the table saw at 27 degrees, and hopefully that should give us a bevel that matches the roof line. So instead of, say, over jumping it to 27.5 degrees, I'll start at the 27 and then I'll see if it matches up properly. And again, I'll be setting my bevel at the 2.5 inch high mark on the 2x4, so that at 2.5 inches then the bevel will begin to go upwards and probably give us the final height of a 1/2 inch more or so. But yeah, so we'll do 2.5 inches, 27 degree bevel, and we'll see where that takes us. Alright, so one thing to notice here now is that our rail only comes so close, but not enough to give us a 2.5 inch space that we want. We're actually at more of 3.5 to the beginning of the blade. So what we're going to have to do is make up our own spacer. And it looks like a 2x4, we clamped it onto the rail, will give us 2.5 inches that we so desire to begin our bevel. Alright, so just for a closer look at that. So with the rail all the way as close to the blade as I can get it, and the 2x4 spacer, I'm looking at 2.25 inches to the blade. So I'm just going to back my rail off 1/4 inch, like so. So now our bevel is right there at the 2.5 inch mark, which I'll lock in place. So now we just got to find a nice piece of 2x4 that will easily clamp onto the rail without being in the way of our next cut. And this shouldn't be too much of an issue because this extra spacer that we got done is vertical, so we can clamp onto the upper parts of it. Because when we do our cut, our 2x4 is going to be going in flat, so it'll be out of the way of the clamps up on the upper part of the rail. Alright, so as of right now I got a small piece, and since the bird blocks are only small, I can start using some of my 2x4 scraps to fill in those blocks and save on my larger pieces. So I'm going to get that clamped in place, and then we'll begin some cuts. Those are nicely out of the way. We should be good to begin. And there we go. That's our first bevel piece cut. And I'll check that against the roof line. Alright, so to check fitment, I'll begin with our first space at the beginning of the roof. And I'll measure that, and that is about 10 inches. Probably even do with an extra 1/8. So let's say 10 inches and an 1/8. Let's go cut that piece. So now that we have that cut, we'll try it in place. Feels like a solid fit. A few little wiggles, might need a little tap from the persuader. here we go. This is the end result of those efforts that we just put into making our first bird block. So the 27-degree bevel looks to be sufficient. Shouldn't be much getting past that. And the measurement was spot on, fit into the groove nicely. So I think we got a good method of action, attack plan here, and we'll continue that across the ridge. Alright, so I've gone ahead and done my measurements, done up my cut list. So I got 5 here to cut right now. So I'll begin with those and get them all done. I'm just going to write my measurement of what I just cut on the inside. So this one was 14 7/16. And I'll just move on through the rest of those. Alright, so now that I got those 5 cuts completed, I'm just going to match them up. I wrote the measurements up in each eave. So for instance, I have 10 and 3/16 going in with 10 and 3/16. That'll be a good fit. I'll just use the persuader on that. 14 and 7/8. Perfect. 14 and 3/8. So far so good. Are we gonna run into one that doesn't fit, you think? Looks alright. Now this ridge beam here, this rafter is actually a little bit twisted, so there is a bit of space there, but not a big deal. And then the final one, I'll pop that in here as well. Alright, so I'll just pan you over this way, let you see everything fit in nicely. So now I'll probably use a little bit of acoustic sealant on each of those just to give it an even better fit and fill in the gaps. But a little bit of ventilation is not going to be a big deal either, because I will be vapor barring the inside when I do the sealing. So it's not a priority. I may just screw these in as they are. And there's nothing structural about them, so I'm not really worried about wood glue either. I just want to bang these in place and get them done. So I think that's what I'll do. Alright, so that is the bird blocking finished on the left side. Now as far as the right side goes, it's going to be the exact same thing. So I'm going to do that off camera just for the sake of expediency and being able to move on to the next part before we run out of time. Moving the camera around and getting all the different angles and different steps actually takes more time than you would think. So that's partially why this project is kind of taking as long as it has been, is trying to capture it properly. But capturing it on video is a priority for me, and having a record of its creation and something for you guys to watch as well and come along on this journey. So I will continue to get footage of it, But as for doing the other side, it's probably footage that I would have cut anyways in the interest of time, you know, or just fast forwarding through it. So it probably wouldn't add very much to this video. So I'm going to go ahead, I'll do the other side. I'll find some more 2x4 scraps. And I don't know if you've noticed, but I actually found use of those first two rafters that I messed up. I reused those, made them into bird blocks. You might have caught that along the way during the cutting on the miter saw there. You see me taking one of the rafter bird's mouths off the end of it. But if you noticed that, thank you for paying attention. If you never noticed it, big deal. Alright, so so anyways, with that said, I'm going to get the other side bird blocked, and then we'll go on to the next part from there. Alright, I'll see you shortly. Alright, so that's the bird blocking done, which is great. So that's good, good progress there. So I'm thinking ahead. I want to start the eaves, but before I do, I kind of need my table saw out of the way. And I usually clean that up using the air blower that I have. It's a leaf blower. So, but before I clean that up, I still have another cut that I need to make, and that's for the nesting box. I need to do a 30-degree bevel on a piece of 2x4 for the lid. I would need a mounting strip going the whole length there, but I need a 30-degree bevel on the top to match the two sides of the box. So I think I'm going to just rip that really quick and then glue that on there and bolt it on, and then we'll move on to the eaves, because the eaves are going to be more miter saw deal, you know, more just using the miter saw instead of the table saw. So I can go ahead and I can clean up the table saw, have that packed out of the way, and then we'll have lots of room for really getting at the eaves and fitting those together properly. So so yeah, I'm going to go ahead and I'll set up the table saw and we'll do that rip. Alright, so table saw is put away, cleaned up, packed up back over in the corner over there. So I got the bevel made for the top of the nesting box. So now I'm just going to cut that to length and then we'll fit it back into place. So I'm just going to measure that off here now. start off with 86 and an eighth, and if it needs to be adjusted from there, we'll make it so. But 86 and an eighth, I think should be okay. Alright, so we got that cut. Now let's get it put on. Also, in the interest of weatherproofing, water sealing, and insulation factor, I am going to be applying some Acousti-Seal along the back of that board. Whether or not it's going to help very much, I don't know. I'm hoping that plus I'll be putting some caulking across the top of it when I put a lid on. Hopefully that'll keep any water that may run down the side of it from making its way into the nesting box. So basically just throwing everything at it and hopefully something sticks. Pardon the pun. Alright, so we got our lid support fully attached now, and what I'm really liking about the acoustic sealant, you can see it's starting to bubble up a little bit here where maybe I squirt just a little tad extra. But you see here, and if I look down, I can see the Acousti-Seal just below the top of this board. So I'm quite happy with that as far as a watertight seal without everything squeezing up and getting too messy. And I don't see any down below, which is fine. But that actually worked out quite well. The 30-degree angle was actually spot on as per when we were designing these nesting boxes. So that worked out great. And overall, that's pretty much how I pictured this part of the nesting box going. So cheers to that. Cheers for success, boys and girls. Have a drink on me. Alright, so we got that much done. So I'm finished with the table saw for now. No more long strips or rips. So we'll move up to the eaves, I guess. I think that's the next thing I had on the list. And we'll get that squared out of the way and off our minds. So I actually had to start recording one more time because I just remembered something. And that is that we will end up having to do one more beveled rip of a whole piece again. And that's when it comes to the end. I don't know which spot I can show you the best on. But basically, I'm going to want to be coming with a piece of 2x4 supporting from corner to corner at this level. So again, I am going to need to bevel off a 30-degree bevel on this area. So we will end up needing to rip one more with that 30-degree bevel so that the lid will be at 30 degrees as well and rest on that with a nice bevel the whole way across. So I wish I had thought about that earlier. I would have done one more exactly like that, and it would be down here at this point. But table saw is put away for now. So that'll have to come when we actually come back to the nesting box. This was just like a bonus edition, and it ended up great, but we came up short by one more of these. I should have done two. Oh well, it is what it is. So we'll move on and we'll get those eaves out of the way. When it comes to doing the eaves, what I've been thinking is I'll revisit my trusty friend, the template. Alright, so this is our rafter template, so it should carry the pitch of the roof that we have, and it was meant to meet up with the ridge board at 90 degrees, or flush anyways, right? So technically if you take two templates and you put them mirror to each other, if they were going to meet the ridge board at a 90 degree or a vertical, whatever you want to call it, you take the other one, you should be able to meet that together and form a peak for these eaves. So that's my theory. I think it's pretty sound. Now the benefit of this is that I actually got an extra rafter that I made last session, and it was because I was making extras for the inside for tacking the ceiling on. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this template, I'm going to take the other rafter, which is, you know, pretty much a copy of the template, probably, you know, a little bit different just from cutting, and I'm going to hold them up to the peak, and let's see if we end up with the proper joining in the peak. So I'm not actually going to be using these rafters because for the eaves I don't need these bird mouth cuts that I already got in here. I need straight boards. I just need this angle in the peak is the biggest thing I'm after. Cross your fingers. So I think we're good angle wise. Alright, so I think we're safe to use these to make our eaves. So I need to make an eave on the front and an eave on the back. Each eave is going to have two sets of these. So I need 8 of these rafter shapes. Yay! Rafter shapes, yay! 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 So in comparison to making a rafter, like I said, the biggest thing I want off this template is the peak angle. I can't make an exact copy of the outside of the template because the template was designed to meet up against the ridge board in the middle and have that 3/4 inch leeway of shortness so that when they combine it makes up for the width of the ridge board. So I'm not going to have a ridge board on the outside, right? So I need that extra 1.5 inches of width to be accommodated for in the length of the piece that I'm making. So if that made any English sense to you at all, you'll understand that what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the rafter angle off of this, and I'll transcribe that down onto my board. But I'm going to leave some extra length at the end of this until I get a proper measurement of length from the peak. Alright, so it's probably better if I just go ahead and do it because apparently my tongue doesn't want to make normal sounding words today. So let's I'll leave like an extra couple inches or so. That should be enough. Alright, so I'm still going to make the same angle down here, but it's going to be a couple inches longer than it needs to be. And that's just for safety. A safety length. And I'm going to do one more, exactly like that again. Alright, so we already got this angle here. And then I'm going to extend it down a couple of inches past, thereabouts. And I'll make my next mark down here. So we're done with the template again for now. Now that I have my two test Eaves pieces, I'm going to square those up and see how they turned out. Alright, so after the first test fit, I got a bit of a gap on the bottom there, so I need to adjust my angle just a smidge and retry these again. So I'll just get that done and we'll come back to test fitting. Just about got it. One more little hair width is all. Here we go for round 3 test. Test number 3. I think it's number 3. Okay, let's see. Moment of truth. That's nice. I like that. That's good. So you can see it there. That's a good matchup. I'll take that. Good, 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 good. So what I'm going to do here now, since I got this one mounted in the correct position, I'm just going to mark the length that I need now for this piece. So that's as easy as just drawing a line on the back, tracing down the previous rafters. But I already have the angle that I need set on the miter saw right now. And I ain't touching that angle. That's the correct angle to get that peak. So I don't care what line I draw at the end of that rafter. I'm keeping that same angle for both sides because that's the right one for the eave right now. And I'll be able to cut those 8 pieces fairly quickly now once I get my length measurement of how long that rafter needs to be. and then I'll just transcribe that over onto the other pieces, and away we go. Chop, chop, chop. So I'll take this piece down now, cut the length, then I'll measure from tip to tip, or we'll tip to butt, whatever you want to call it, and that will tell me the length that I need to make my other Eve pieces. Alright, my tongue ain't working the best today, so bear with me, alright? I think my mind is still straight, but the mouth just ain't getting out what needs to come out. So hopefully you're picking up what I'm laying down here, okay? Alright, let's keep going. I now have my 8 longer pieces cut for the eaves. It actually wasn't too bad afterwards, kind of overplayed that one, but at the same time I just need to make sure to keep my miter saw in the proper angle, which was 27 degrees. So that's what I needed after, 27 degrees on the nose, repeatable, and I just used the previous board as far as getting a distance marking for length. But I just kept that miter angle at 27 degrees and cut the length, and turned out great. So next part is going to be cutting some 3-inch spacer blocks. So I'm going to be scrounging through all my scraps, coming up with 3-inch blocks from whatever I can, because I'm not in the mood to waste more scrap. It's actually quite pleasing when I look at my pile of scrap and the pieces there are kind of just reducing in size over time as I manage to find different purposes for them. So it feels good not to be wasting too much wood and getting back into that pile to find something every now and then that's useful. So now from the pieces that I cut off these, I got lots of longer pieces, but I'm going to be trying to use up that scrap, because 3 inches, you know, that's usually a piece you'd throw away or burn. So you know, finding something useful without chopping my fingers off, now that's the main priority right now. So what I figure is about 3 blocks per Eve, so 4 Eve piece. So 4 Eve pieces will give me 12 blocks that I need to make. I think that should be plenty, structure wise. You know, 1 down here, 1 in the middle, and 1 at the tip. 3 should be more than enough. Alright, so I'm going to go through my scrap, and I'm just going to miter saw 3-inch blocks. Nothing spectacular. So I'm just going to bang that out off camera and get back to you guys once we're ready to start piecing all this together. I now have my 3-inch blocks done. So I'm going to get settled in and get comfortable for assembly now. So the way these are going to work is 2 sideboards, 2 runners. There'll be a 3-inch block series in between them. Alright, like this actually. Okay, so when that is assembled like that, that will make 1 Eve, one side of an Eve. So as far as where to put your supporting blocks in the middle, your spacers, I don't think it's really a big deal where they go, to be honest. I kind of just go both ends and the middle. It's pretty simple as it gets. So what I'll do is I'll line up. What I'm going to do is I'll take the butted edge here. I'm going to put it down flat on the bench so that the 3-inch block stands up straight. And I'll just match up the block so that it's down at the corner of that butted area. Alright, so it'll be kind of like that. I think that'll give me what I'm looking for as far as getting it all the way down to the end. And and just square it off down there. You can pretty much square that off just by eyeballing it, really. Right, you just line up this side here, down at the very end. Throw a couple of screws in the side. I'm going to actually glue mine as well, just where it is kind of hanging off the edge. It'll give it that extra bit of strength. But really, when it comes down to it, it's not very complicated. It's just getting all those angles for getting the screws into it, that's all. Alright, so that's it. I'll start whacking the glue to it, put the screws in, and we should have these made fairly quickly. And there we go. This is the first Eaves piece complete. So that wasn't so bad. So I'll go ahead and do that 3 more times and we'll be ready to get these mounted up. have it. That's the 4 Eaves pieces assembled, ready to install. I'm toying with the idea of not installing them right now, just because I think I'm probably running low on memory on the camera for 1, and we're awful close to eating time for 2. And I don't want to rush this part. I want to get these mounted up properly and glued in, and so I can let the glue set on these until the next session. And also having these done and ready to go will kind of give me a bit more motivation to get back out here for next session, because I know that they're done and just need to be put up, right? So it gives me a definite task to begin with. And sometimes you got to do that for yourself. Give yourself a one-up, you know, like instead of coming out and starting something totally new, finish off something you know that you're capable of doing quickly, and kind of that'll lead into the next task, okay? At least for me, that's kind of how it works. So I think I'm going to leave these. I'll put them inside the chicken coop and clean up here a bit. And so next time we'll put these up. We'll rip that 2x4 for the edge of the nesting box, and we'll actually do more framing on that nesting box and get the dividers and everything done, and we'll start getting to the point where we can sheet that with some plywood and have that finished as well. So I think we're coming along quickly. We still got to put a couple of pieces of 2x4 in the end rafters, so that we got a nailing surface for our ceiling ends. And yeah, just little odds and ends. As I said in the beginning, little tedious bits. But you know what? It's all little tedious bits, and that's what we're going to keep on plugging away at them and get them done. So with all that said, I think we're done for today. I hope I can get this video out to you guys in somewhat of a timely fashion before tomorrow morning, and hopefully it'll edit together nicely and quickly so I can start rendering quickly. Alright, so anyways, I hope you guys are happy. I hope you're healthy. Make sure you're taking care of each other, and we'll see you next time. Peace out.